Welcome back for another Relationship Wednesday.
We back.
We going to pick up on our conversation. Why do we hold unforgiveness towards God, and the philosophies that support that? Mm-hmm. So, Mike, again, welcome back for another session. So we're going to dive right back into it and just really pick up where we left off last week, and really talking about how people don't understand the rules of engagement when God said, "Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air," and not really understanding what that means. And so, and that's the reason why I feel like one of the best ways to illustrate it through our context is where there are people who are landlords who own houses, but they rent it out to people, and where they begin to now have limited authority, even though they own it, but they've given over some of their authority to what they can do to the property.
Crazy. Because
they're now living in it. So, and of course, there's agreements in terms and stuff like that. But bottom line is, they know the owner just can't come in and do whatever anymore, right, because of the rules of renting out to a tenant.
I got a question. Yeah. So is grace like when you see something that shouldn't be done and be like, yo, I'll be there in 48 hours? Is that like in this context, you know, how the landlord, I can pop up, but I got to give you, warning that I'm coming. Mm-hmm. Is that like the grace of God? I'm just trying to make the whole thing connect.
Right, and that can be. Yeah. But grace usually comes more where you didn't have the payment.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to give you grace where I'm not going to kick you out.
It'll give you a week or two.
But I give you grace to get the payments or whatever, or put on payment. In other words, the contract says you're supposed to pay me at the specific date.
I got you.
But because you weren't able to do it, I will give you grace. But that's where I think people understand. Understand grace is an act of mercy. Because again, what is grace saying? It's a reflection of my character, not yours. Meaning that, in other words, because the reason why I'm giving you grace is because it's showing the kindness of my heart.
Yeah.
Right? But the problem is, don't frustrate grace. But understand, maximize grace. But what a lot of people do with God when they hear the grace message, they think it's okay to frustrate grace.
Okay.
So, in other words, grace isn't a do whatever you want gospel.
Right.
Grace is, I know I'm not perfect, and you'll give me room for my mistakes, because I understand that I'm not perfect.
Like, don't abuse it.
Right, don't abuse it. So, to me, it's almost like, let's say you had a house and you had a friend that decided that you say, hey, man, you can stay over my house for the weekend, do whatever.
Yeah.
And then they do that, and then what happens? They end up throwing a party, they tear up your house and all that. Like, I did not give you the house to tear it up where I got to come and do all that. In other words, you frustrated grace, you took advantage.
So where does eviction come? Like, tie that in. What's the eviction?
Eviction is when the spiritual laws eventually caught up to. So in other words, you frustrated grace, you went past grace to the point where the spiritual laws, in other words, became bigger than the grace.
Hey. It's tough.
Yeah, because a lot of times we can get grace, but if you keep violating the laws too much, sometimes then basically there's a point where the laws become bigger than grace. I'll give you an example I'm talking about. Brother Hagin, a lot of people may not know about his ministry. He had a strong healing ministry back in the day. And so one of the things that happened was he would go and pray for people. So one time he went to go pray for this one guy, and he couldn't talk. And so he put his hands on him, and he prayed. He felt the power go into his body, but then he felt the power come back into his hand. He felt the energy. And he did it the third time. So after the third time, he asked the Lord, he said, Lord, how come the power keep returning? He said he talked himself there. Now that he can no longer speak, he can't get himself out.
Hey.
And he said even though the energy was going, but the law couldn't work because the law of his words got him there. And now that he can't talk, now he gone so far past grace that where grace couldn't even get him out because he violated the law too much.
Crazy. Eviction.
Yeah. And usually that's what eviction is. Usually most landlords are not going to just kick you out just because you may miss the payment or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they'd be willing to work with you.
Right.
But usually the eviction comes because you violated grace to the point where you violated the law so long to eventually the law kicked you out. Yeah. Because you didn't honor and take advantage of grace, you tried to, take advantage of grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can dig it.
And so that's where we have to understand that. And we got to look at Jesus. If people understand the whole message of Jesus Christ and everything, and the point I'm making is that God always cooperated with his laws. And I think that's one of the things we need to understand about God. So when we think about sovereignty, see, we have to understand that God says he'll never override his word, which means that he's not going to override the very thing he said and just do what he want to do.
Right.
And I give you an example of what I'm saying. Let's look at Jesus. If anybody studied out the Bible and what happened. So let's go back to the garden. And we're talking about laws and how God established things. Adam and Eve sinned. They lost their position. Their spirit man got disconnected from God. And then they said that the whole point was, if God could just come in and redeem man, why didn't he do it from heaven? Because there's rules.
Right.
So Satan thought he had God hostage. Because basically Satan says, remember, Satan couldn't come and take the authority from Adam. What did Adam do? He turned it over. That's how he want to be like God, right? Adam gave Satan the authority. And so because he knew that God couldn't do anything about it, because he knew he holds to his word. So he says, all right, and why do you think that whenever they was talking about a savior, during the time of Moses, why did they try to kill off the firstborns? Because Satan knew that if God got back into a body, then he could do something about it.
Right, because he can't traffic here without a body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where God set up the rules.
Right.
So as long as you have a birth certificate, you got more authority than the devil.
Yeah, that's good.
So, and then says, and this is what they said, when Jesus came, they said, why do you torment us before the time? He said, son of man. He said, no, I'm son of God. So basically saying it's, how are you able to become God back in the body to be able to have this authority? And that's the point that people have to understand. The whole fact that Jesus had to come in man form, God had to move into a body, get on the cross, pay the death penalty, because a price had to be paid for the disobedience. And then he goes to hell, gives the death keys back to the devil, takes the keys of authority back, and then goes to heaven and shows it. So I'm saying, why go through all that if there weren't rules?
Tell me this. So, and this is something else I heard today. Maybe you can break it down better. A life, because we're made in the image of God, and God is love. He loves us so much that he created us so he can continue to love, right? And I don't know where it is in the Bible, but Miles was talking about the reason that you had to give a life, if you took a life, is because the value of the life that you took, right? So because we are so valuable in his eyes and the fall of man happened, that's why Christ had to come and give that life for the lives that were lost. Or
that's what it means to be redeemed. It meaning that equal, because like when you go to the when you have to redeem something,
right? That's where I wanted you to go.
Right, the whole value system equal. You can't redeem something of lesser value for something more valuable.
Right, but also before you go, for the people who feel as though that they are worthless, they have no purpose in life, they don't need to be here, they are less than, you know what I'm saying? Because this is a lot, at least in my world.
Right, but the problem is we got to get over this whole good cop, bad cop thing.
What you mean?
Meaning that a lot of people know that Jesus died for us, but they felt like Jesus was the good cop to stop the wrath of the bad cop God.
Okay.
So a lot of people know that Jesus died, but they still don't see their value in knowing that. So in other words, people understand is that Jesus is an extension and expression of the love of God.
Represented, right?
Yes, and so which means that now I understand that God saw us that valuable that he was willing to give up his only son to redeem us because we meant that much to him.
Yeah.
But as long as we see God as the bad guy, and that Jesus was the good cop standing on the cross to stop the judgment, and how God,
right.
So because again, I'm building a relationship with God.
But these were the laws, though. and he can't go back on his word. So it's not even that he's the bad cop. He's like, I put these laws in action. They were broken. Right. So they have to execute. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And so like even in the Old Testament, a lot of times people didn't understand. Like, you know, Cain killed his brother. That's the first murder. Nobody told him. You know. Actually, God protected Cain.
Word. I said word.
Yeah, he protected him. He ain't even killed him for it. He protected him. He said anybody who kills him will be a curse to come on them. To the point where people start believing that, you know, God, you know, would just let anything slide. And then he said, no, that wasn't the whole point. I wanted to let you know I'm still merciful and all those type of things. So because of heart things progressed, but the whole thing was that the law didn't even come for like thousands of years after the fall of man. Like God was still talking. For example, when God said, "Where's your brother? Am I my brother's keeper?" For you to actually talk to God, like I can just lie to you, just say and just with contempt. Yeah, that means you've been talking to God so long that he became comfortable to you.
Familiar. Yep.
Yeah, even after the fall of man. So that basically saying is that people don't even understand why the flood came, why certain judgments happened. Those weren't things. It's like a parent. When you spank your child, you spank him because, listen, I don't want to do it, but I know that this is necessary for you to get the lesson so it protects you for the long term.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people understand is that, like, this part people don't get. Where, because Satan was scared of Jesus coming because of the rules. So what happened was, he had his angels, fallen angels, go and sleep with women to distort the bloodline so Jesus couldn't come. So that was the whole point of the flood. The flood wasn't to kill man.
I ain't even heard that one. What happened?
So what happened was Satan knew that God had a plan to bring a savior back into the earth. So he said, okay, well, if I can distort the bloodline. So he had angels come and sleep with women, fallen angels. And that's where these giants and stuff came from.
That's what I was about to say. That's what the giants was.
Yeah, that's how the giants came. Crazy. That's when the sons of men came, and that's where they came. And they slept with the women because Satan was saying if we can distort the bloodline, then there can never be a savior to come. And therefore, man is we got him because now God can't come because we messed the bloodline so much. So God said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm called Noah and his family, spare them, they righteous, and we're going to protect his bloodline, and we're going to kill everything else. Why? Because I want to make sure mankind is redeemed. So it's almost like I got to give mankind a spanking to protect for a savior to come. That was the whole point. And every time he did it, it was never to judge man. It was always to protect humanity so Jesus could come.
And that's another, like, theology that people got wrong. Like, you know, God, he flooded the land before, he brought fire, like he did this before, he'll do it again type thing, but not knowing like the why behind what was done.
Right. And so that's where you understand love better, right? Now I can understand. Crazy. Okay, now I see he loves it. He did. It's like that was an act of love.
This gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you.
Yes, right? And it's like to them it can seem like judgment. But to you, you're doing it because it's an act of love.
Right.
But if the child don't know the heart of the father,
sure,
it can be misinterpreted as a punishment or a judgment.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, and then now we walk with all these philosophies, not realizing that God was always love. He never changed. It's just that he had to do things to protect humanity until Jesus could come.
And love ain't always squishy and pretty. You know what I'm saying?
Because the other side of love that's hard is the protector side.
Yeah.
So I'm not being mean to be evil. I'm being this way to be protective. You know.
In hindsight, you'll see, just like me being an adult, having a family, understand my father way more than I ever did.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And my mom. So, but mainly Pops, because Pops, as a father, like, you are training your replacement, if you will. And this replacement has to be able to carry on a legacy and be so much better than you were. And I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Looking back now. So
yeah. And so now we can begin to now marry these ideas and understand what's really going on.
Yeah.
And what's happening.
Yeah, that's good.
And so where now I can be like, okay, I understand better what was going on. Now I've realized it. So he wasn't like he was a mean God in the Old Testament. So now in the New Testament, all of a sudden he's this new loving God because of Jesus.
Right.
When he says he's the same yesterday, today, forever. So that means that if you were mean in the Old Testament, you probably should be mean today. If you see what I'm saying?
No, I got you.
So, but again, a lot of these govern our confidence in Him, our trust in Him when we have these ideas about God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you go about 10 more minutes. So, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, where we have to understand that, and where I think when we believe these certain things and people don't know and marry these ideas properly, then when we're in life situation when bad things are happening, we're thinking that God has authorized these bad things.
And then this is how the bitterness comes in, and, you know, upset with God about. So pretty much it's the understanding that God is for you and He's not doing these things to me to help me not blame God for the things in life that happen, because we live in I say it all the time, a fallen world where things happen, right? Mm-hmm. So if I know that God is actually on my side, God is in me when these things pop up, I don't turn inwardly or outwardly to be upset with the Creator. I just do what I was created to do, and that's create these opportunities out of the things that happen in life.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Right. So, and I realize everything comes down to rules. And what I mean is that because our doctrine is off, then we don't take time to cooperate with the rules. And so, you know, this could take us like deep stuff here. The Bible in Ezekiel calls Satan the chief sinner. And the reason why he calls him that is because he learned to grid. Meaning that he understood the spiritual laws and how you move spiritual things into the physical world. Yeah. But the church, he's taught the church religion basically twisted rules, so we never get it. But he taught it to the world how to move money and certain things into the world. Yeah. And he taught them that system. So for example, you know, we put it in such a religious context about God's judgment if you don't tithe. Yeah. But if you listen to like rich people who they believe in giving away at least 10%. So in other words, say they took church out of it, but they still give away 10%.
The rules.
Yeah. Rules.
Still functioning.
So Satan taught you, say, well, listen, we're not going to make a church to y'all. We're just going to tell you that you get 10% away, you always going to have. Yeah. But to the church, we're going to take, but no, I don't want you to teach it to them that way. Tell them that if they don't tithe, then God's going to judge them. And you got, now understand that it was about rules. It wasn't even about judgment.
Yeah, yeah.
It's almost like gravity. If you get up on the 5-story building, you jump off, then God's going to judge you. No. It's just gravity is going to start pulling you at a higher pace, and you got slapped by gravity. Yeah, yeah. Saying God judgment. No, these were rules. Yep. And we misunderstood because Satan says, "Let me not tell you their rules. Let me tell you those are God's judgments." And then now realizing that, I'm thinking that me doing these things, it's me. No, see, that's what I'm saying. You tempted God. No, that's what I'm saying. You violated rules because you know gravity can either build muscle or it can kill you. It's all how you use it. Gravity can, like resistance training, it can help you get faster through resistance training, right. Or it can kill you. Yeah. So it's all in, you know, like even with the G-force, when you spin around, it can make you do like them things where it spin you real quick. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? G-forces. So I'm just saying that gravity, so in other words, laws are all in how you use it. But if you misuse it, and the Satan says, let's teach you how to misuse it, and then I call it God's judgment. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where the world says, no, that wasn't God's. You just didn't work with the rules.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and that's why.
And the Bible says wisdom says length. It says honor wisdom. It's like more than precious rubies because it says that length of days is in her hands. So basically, he's saying God does have an end date and a start date. He said, but how long you live that is based on the wisdom. How you use the rules while you're here.
What about the promise of the 70?
That's right, promise, but all contingent on wisdom. Right. In other words, getting there is all based off of wisdom. So if you violate wisdom, then you may not live to be 70. Yeah. So it wasn't that God's will that you weren't supposed to live supposed to live there. It's just that I did things to shorten my life spiritually or even naturally.
And that's good because I deal with a lot of like cancer patients, right? And I was working with this one girl, And then she was like, I pretty much told her, I was like, look, I don't, because I didn't necessarily know at the time. It's probably like 3 years ago. Like, I don't know. All I know is he said I got to 70, and I was 24 and I wasn't 70 yet, so I wasn't ready to go. She was like, so what about the people that went before it? I was like, I don't know about that. I just know that I believe in my 70, so I'm going to get to my 70. Like, I'm going to go to 120. Fun fact, I got a stem cell transplant. They said stem cells is, if they said people with stem cell transplants, and people are like trying to get them now, like you can live to like 120. Like that's the number they put out there. So I'm gonna be here for a while, ladies and gentlemen.
And so now,
thank you for joining Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. for this edition of Relationship Wednesday. We hope you enjoyed this episode of After I Did. Let's keep the conversation going by leaving your questions and comments in the chat. We also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you are reminded to join us next Wednesday as Pastor Wayne continues this discussion of After I Did.